Okay, what's on tap again today?
Absolute necessity. Spider picking up monk dedication. Lunge stance, monk weaponry, ancestral weaponry. It needs to be an elf for half elf, bully elf, ghostlight, aka gas, great katana with reach. The build could make use of key rush, slash strike, and abundant step for added flavor. If you could fit, it would be hilarious if you could abundant step past an enemy and then say, Home wa Shinu, as you already cut them down in the way, but mechanically you lunge at them and then abundant step to the other side.
Okay, so that's a lot. My name is Tommy, min-maxing for fun and profit, 2nd edition. Like, subscribe, ding the bell. Stay caught up on all your stuff. Patreon gets you a Google Sheet and lets you do this. But for now, let's hit it. Okie doke. So this build has a lot going on. The request is so big. The request is so enormous. I have to break this one down into two. I just do. Some of the things also don't really work like you would want them to, which is kind of unfortunate. My 1E brain kicks on when I look at this and I think, I could build a real good Dancy Marshall in 1E out of this. And so what I'm going to do is take the request, make something very playable in 2nd edition, then do the same next week in 1st edition. Before I get there though, let's talk about what we probably shouldn't be doing. Lunge and lunge stance, its bigger brother, are cool, but lunge just like for one action to reach a little farther doesn't carry the weight that it used to, given that like I cannot both lunge and power attack, and since we're not using a reach weapon, we're not really trying to optimize that big threat range. And even if we were with the stance, it feels incredibly arbitrary since we only get a very small amount of reactions to add up even on our best day at level 20. In addition, if we were a fighter picking up monk dedication, even as an ancient elf, we would need 3 feats before we could start flurrying with an elven curve blade, which in like a dual class game, yeah, sure, go nuts. But in normal games, that's just such a humongous tax. So instead, we're going to focus on really just optimizing around ancestral weapon, flurrying with a really cool weapon, taking a weapon that does more things than the standard issue punch or other monk weapons, and then swinging it a whole heck of a lot. Within the bounds of Pathfinder 2nd edition, the elven curve blade, the staple of gishes everywhere in 1st edition, a 2-handed weapon that does 1d8 points of slashing damage with the elf finesse, forceful, and uncommon traits. Finesse is important because that will allow us to eventually use it with flurry of blows, and if we were a rogue, would let us do dexterity to damage. Forceful also looks real cool because when we're swinging more than once on a turn, the second attack gets a circumstance bonus to damage equal to the number of damage dice, then subsequent attacks get a circumstance bonus equal to double the damage dice. So if we're swinging 2d8, you get 2d8 plus 2, then 2d8 plus 4, plus like your strength and all the other things. Anyway, down to the meat and the potatoes of Ancient Elf today. The fighter dedication is obviously still really cool for us. We can get a lot of value out of it, and getting the dedication up here saves us a feat, of course. For your background, anything that buffs out your strength and dexterity will work, since we are indeed playing a monk. Having that ability to dodge, duck, dip, dive, and not get hit seems real important. For our starting ability scores, we're looking at a strength of 18, dex of 16, con of 10, int of 14, wisdom of 12, charisma of 10. Now, sure, you could have had wisdom 12. That's probably technically the better option. I don't know. I see the buff to int that we get from being an elf. I didn't want to play too hard with taking double dips. Rather, took the simple option, leaned into intelligence, get another skill rank. Why not? I like being useful in all parts of play, including off the battlefield. For our class feats out the gate, monastic weaponry gives you access to uncommon weapons with the monk trait. You get trained in symbol and martial monk weapons. When your proficiency for unarmed attacks increases to expert or master, these weapons bump up as well. You may also use melee monk weapons with any monk feats or monk abilities that normally require unarmed attacks, though not if you need to like Tiger Slash or Crane Stance or anything like that. Next up, ancestral weaponry. Choose an ancestry for which you have access to all weapons with that trait, which we do, because I guess I'll say it now. Elven Weapon Familiarity, 1st level ancestry feat, you knew you'd see it. Lets you use melee weapons with either the agile or finesse trait from that ancestry with monk things as they gain the monk trait. Meaning by level 2, we can, for one action, make 2 Elven Curve Blade swings. If both hit, combine their damage for the purpose of resistance and weaknesses, apply the map normally, giving us really more chances to fish with that sword of ours as we go swinging in, while also conserving more actions to take advantage of the other thing we do really well, that is to say, move real quick. Lightning Berserking is the name of the game here. Stride, a lot of feet that only gets more and more as we level up to the opponent. Flurry of blows, make 2 strikes, and then stride back again away. Since so few things have attack of opportunity, you just become this angry little pinball or cruise missile or dude with lots of martial training and a sword. This is another one of those builds. I make a lot of these that will shine if your GM will let you pick or design the battlefields at all. Big open terrain, lots of places for you to run and hide and jump and stab. Perfect. Even better if you can use that big move speed to kite them into natural or party-made hazards. Leaning in even farther than that, level 4 sudden charge, letting us weaponize that big move speed even more. Spend 2 actions, move twice, bop once. 3 actions for the price of 2. Looks good on everyone, better on the very, very fast dude. Our first key power comes online at level 6. Our con's real low, our ancestry's not helping us with HP. Speed is armor, but not all the time. Wholeness of body will grant us a single focus point and the ability to, for 1 action, regain 8 hit points plus 8 more for every level we're heightening this, or try to cure a poison or disease. Mostly just have a little bit of healing to compensate for the lack of HP sometimes. Next level, Iron Blood stance, the only stance we'll be taking, lets you have a pretty cool Iron Sweep unarmed attack. We're much more worried about while in Iron Blood stance, we gain resistance 2 to all damage, which goes up to 3 at 12th, 4 at 16th, and 5 at 20th, mitigating a little bit of the damage that inevitably will be thrown at us. We'll grab Power Attack from the fighter next, very late, but for 2 actions, make a melee strike. It counts as 2 attacks when calculating the map. If it hits, you deal an extra die of weapon damage if you're at least 10th level. Wowie we are. It increases to 2. If you're 18th, it becomes 3, which, Forceful just super loves to see. Then Furious Focus right after that, as soon as we, the monk fighter, can qualify. When you make a power attack with a melee weapon you're wielding in 2 hands, that's us, it counts as 1 attack towards the map instead of 2. It also kind of exists as a baby form of this next feat because 1-inch punch, considering that we're using monastic weaponry, ostensibly does the same thing. Make an unarmed strike. If you spent 2 actions and it hits, you deal an extra die of damage, or 3 actions gives you 2. If you're 10th level, you get plus 2 dice, or literally same as power attack. Or if you just spend your whole turn, it's 4 extra dice, which looks real dope if by this point someone's cast haste on you. So you strike once, then proc Forceful and add way too many dice into the damage machine. This then goes up for 6 additional dice by 18th level. Meaning by 18th level, if this weapon is not enchanted, you're swinging in 7d8 if you attacked first. That's plus 7 damage. And for funsies, 1mm punch next. When you damage a target using 1-inch punch, the target makes a fortitude save against your class DC. On a crit success, nothing happens. On a success, they are pushed back 5 feet, meaning they theoretically had to step to hit you. That was another thing about the lunge build. I didn't know exactly how good the reach of 10 feet would be, given that as things get stronger, they tend to get bigger. So too does their reach. On a failure, they're pushed back 10 feet. Critical failure, they're pushed back 10 feet for each action spent on 1-inch punching, which does the same thing. That forces them to then have to burn an action to move up closer to you, or maybe even 2 strides if they're particularly pokey, and you were to instead, again, be hasted, hit them with a 3-action 1-inch punch, yote them, and then stride the other way. Key form is next. Our second focus spell lets us go Super Saiyan, gives us a fly speed equal to our land speed, which, oh yeah, is a lot. Our strikes all deal an additional d6 of force, lawful, negative, or positive. We also deal 2d6 points of damage to creatures who start their turn within 5 feet of us. We're also counteracting darkness. We're also channeling power for our spirit bomb. What else could you want? Well, I'll tell you. Golden Body. Now, this gives our unarmed strikes the deadly D12 trait. This unfortunately doesn't interact with our ancestral weapon stuff because this isn't something we use. This is just a passive thing, granted. But the fast healing 20 is really why we're here. If that's not a capstone, I don't know what is. If you have 1 HP and you're out of combat, you're good. You're golden body. I didn't mean to make that pun, but here we are. For our ancestry feats, Elven Weapon Familiarity, of course, out the gate to get us access to the blade that we want to whap people with. Then Elven Weapon Elegance, because the critical specialization for swords, flat-footing folks, is really good for us and all of our friends. Elf Step will let us spend one action to step twice when we really need to get out of the way of folks without provoking reactions. There it is. Brightness Seeker, a little late on, kind of because I'm tired of being adopted by halflings, kind of because Augury is pretty darn useful, as is that Call Upon the Brightness reaction. Lastly, Elven Instincts for that buff to initiative. We've made it this far, why not? For the general feats, Fleet, why not tack on +5 foot to our already fast move speed, Rich get richer. Not the ancestry feat that elves get to go faster, richer, but why not have it here? Then Toughness, Die Hard, Incredible Initiative, and Canny Acumen for our worst of saves. The only save we're not path to perfectioning, that is, our Reflex save. All our saves come out pretty good, because of course they do, because we're a monk. Quick run of some magic items that are pretty helpful. The Bracers of Armor, since indeed we're running around with that unarmed defense, getting these stacked up as much as we can will be incredibly helpful to keep us from being cut in twain. And then, of course, on top of your fundamental weapons and armor stuff, the Grievous, making a target flat-footed for a whole ass round, has very big, like, shields down in Halo vibes. Everybody target that dude, their armor class is lower, crit city, and then the Keen ability lets you crit on 19. It's not quite the 15 that it used to be, but we'll take it. And yeah, that is the synergy of our sweet, I believe Wind Scar style was the name of the request. I really like the way that Forceful and 1mm punch interact. Truly, it almost feels like you could train out of Power Attack Furious Focus into like side fighter tech things. Like if you really wanted to grab some of the archery or thrown weapon focused things, you could by the time you got to the strictly better option. Definitely thought about the style feat that would let you like key throw your weapon and bounce it back a bunch too. I'm not sure how often we're gonna fight a bunch of small things. If you're fighting a bunch of things much smaller than you, something like Whirling Blade Stance, which would give that Elven Curb Blade the thrown 10 feet trait and lets you just yeet it all over the battlefield and then have it snap back to your hand, might be super cool. I just think it might be a little better to focus down on one thing, do a boatload of damage, and then sprint out of the way. But you'll know better than me. Anyway, that's all the time we have for this one. What do y'all think? Have we rolled up something like this? Would you play something like this? Throw it in the comments. Next week, I'm ostensibly doing the same thing in first edition, focusing a little less on the have great weapon flurry with it and a little more on the aspects of big reach with cool weapon. Really having our cake and eating it too on this one, because I gotta do it twice to do this one justice. Till then, thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.